Hi, everybody. Old Buck Dave here, back again with none other than.
Oh, Buckdell.
Hey, good to talk to you, buddy.
Oh, yes.
We got a special episode today. Do you remember what number this is? It's
I think it's
190,
196.
186. All right, I'll go with 196. Yeah. So we're going to bring a couple special guests on in a few minutes. We're really excited about talking to them. But first, I just wanted to see what's new in your world, and I can tell you what's new in my world. I've had kind of a good start to the trip, actually. Well, not a great start because our flight left Sarasota 2 hours late, but we still had enough time to make the connection in Charlotte to Frankfurt, and the Charlotte to Frankfurt flight was just terrific. Got in right on time. It was wonderful. So, but that's why I book a big a big space between my connection city and the I guess they're doing some AI on the system now because they're saying, well, there's a later flight. You should take the later flight to Charlotte. Like, nope, nope, nope. I'm taking the early flight. And so it's all worked out. We're staying with friends, Linda and Klaus here in Kelkheim, which is near Niederhausen. And if that still doesn't mean anything, it's about 18 miles from Frankfurt. We're up on a hill. We get a beautiful view of the city in the distance. I think Dale, I just sent you a picture of that.
You did, and I thought I thought that was quite a panoramic view from up
Oh,
there.
it's really a beautiful. Yeah, they're way up on a hill here, and you could just see forever. So they're taking good care of us. Klaus took me on a bike ride today, on a mountain bike ride, and he called this a quote flat ride through the forest. Okay. Now remember, I said they live on a hill, so it, it was mostly flat, but it was a good start. It was a good uphill start to get my heart thumping. The good news for me is that Klaus developed a slow leak in his rear tire, and we had to turn around early in order for him to limp back, before his tire went totally flat. So we really only got about 5 miles in, and he
So he had a spare bike for you. There was a spare.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. Oh man, he's got a nice collection here. Actually,
Oh,
I used his wife's bike. I used Linda's bike, and it was actually too big for her when she bought it. So, but it's a perfect fit for me. So, yeah. And Klaus just got took delivery on, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, a beautiful gravel bike, handmade in Italy, steel frame. Really, just a
so
piece of work.
there's a common thread right there. The bicycling, huh? That's
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We had a good time. Yeah, and we're gonna go out again here sometime.
well. I'm glad it started out well, and I'm sure there'll be a few delays, but that's part of the adventure as far as I'm concerned. And as long as you stay safe, that's all I think
No,
about.
yeah, being safe, staying safe. The mosquito bites that I talked about didn't turned out to be chigger bites actually, and so I've got these big red welts all over me. They're better than they were, but it's still kind of scary looking. It was about 40 bites as it turned out.
And
So.
and I understand you're enjoying some decent weather over there, are you?
Oh, it's beautiful. I think we peaked at 77 here today. It's been yeah, it's in the 60s in the morning and then up. Oh, it's perfect. How about Florida?
Well,
Well,
it'll be up in the 90s if they want to convert that into Celsius. But I was outside for a little bit, but not too long.
not
Have to
too long.
stay out of the sun. The sun is not my friend. Otherwise, I'm sure you're aware of what's happening in the world, all of which I've been trying to avoid. So
I'm trying to avoid it. I thought
I don't
being
even want
over
to talk
here,
about that at
I
all. I
can
just
try to avoid it as much as possible. Yeah.
Hey, you did send me a little thing about somebody running.
Give me another
Did you
hint.
a little headline somebody that runs for somebody else to get paid to run?
Oh, yes, and that's something. There now.
I didn't quite figure that out. Can you just quickly brief me
Okay. Well,
on what
well,
that
well.
was?
Strava is an app that records. Runners use it and cyclists use it, and it'll record the time that you're running or cycling, and it'll record your how fast you went up a particular hill, for example. and your time will be pitted against other time on Strava to see who's king of the mountain, that sort of thing.
So this is done with your phone, right? It's just the phone is on you or
It's a
something.
phone app, yes, and it's on you.
Oh
So now
my.
apparently rich guys are hiring young guys to run for them to record these great times on Strava while they're while they're back at the office, drinking Cokes and eating potato chips, I guess. I don't know. It's so silly.
I was going to say that sounds a little bizarre. I mean, what, in other words, in order to claim a certain time or ability or skill, this app will record that, and then they'll claim that they did they did
They did it. Yeah.
that.
That's pretty sad.
Hey, with the way things are going, AI and everything, the world is changing.
Don't believe anything.
Nothing surprises me
Nothing
anymore.
surprises
Absolutely
you.
nothing.
Okay. Well, hey, listen, it's good to talk to you. The real reason we're here today, as we mentioned last week, is we are honored to have with us two strong women that we interviewed in 2023. They're back to give us an update on how things have gone in the past year for them and for other people they know as well. So we want to get the big picture here. And let me just tell you a little bit about both of them for listeners who are new to us or whose memory doesn't go back a year or so. Ani Tregouet, whom we interviewed February 9th, 2023, is an award-winning educator with 30 years experience teaching in France, England, Ireland, and the USA. She has hosted Ukrainian refugees in her home in Saint Omer, and for the past, I think around 18 months, has been teaching intensive French classes to Ukrainian women who, along with their children, have sought asylum in France. Her husband, Paul, sends EMT supplies monthly to the front lines of battle through his Polish-Ukrainian network. Now, Saint-Omer, it's a beautiful town in the northeast of France, and this little town has hosted over 500 Ukrainian refugees, with Ani and Paul being key players in this effort. And much of the organizing of this effort was credited to Mary Meany, whom we interviewed along with Ani back in February of last year. Mary, an American living near Saint Omer, spearheaded the creation of a voluntary support system that reached out in many directions to aid the transition of the immigrants and is now used as a roadmap for other communities trying to do the same thing. So it's been quite an undertaking, and it's very impressive. Yulia Ovstrovska was one of the 3 Ukrainian women that Paul interviewed for me on July 7th, 2023. I was in France, but I was sick, flat on my back in my hotel room. Could not leave the room. So, thanks to Paul, he got the honorary title Eurobuck Paul. So he was really helpful in making all this happen. Now, Yulia is an accountant and a lawyer from Kharkiv, and that's Ukraine's second largest city, and it's in the middle of the battle zone in the northeast. She brought her 2 daughters with her, and we'll find out how they're doing as well. So, Ani, let's start with you. Looking at the refugee population, the Ukrainian population in the area, has it grown or diminished in the past year, and why so?
You mentioned that in our parts of the world we had about 500 refugees. Well, that was really between Saint-Omer and Dunkirk in the north.
The region, yes. Okay, the region, yes.
And so we had at the most, we had about 250 to 300 people in Saint-Omer. Many of them moved out. We have about 100 now, no more than that. So what happened to the last 200? Well, they went to bigger cities in France. Maybe it's Dunkirk, Lille, or cities where they had connections. But it's about half that went back to Ukraine.
Oh, half have gone back. Okay.
Yeah, about half went back, under 100. And then about under 100 also went to either other cities in France or other cities in Europe. and some even went to the United States. Those who went to another country went there because they had connections in the country.
Okay, I see. And have any new refugees come since a year ago?
No, not since last year, no.
Okay, okay.
And I think that the most important reason why they left is because, as you mentioned, Saint-Omer is a smaller town.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 15,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the region of Saint-Omer, it's about 100,000. But there are not that many job opportunities. And so people prefer going to Lille, Paris, Dunkerque.
Okay.
So that's why our Ukrainian population shrank.
Well, I guess the good news there is that the jobs are available through different parts of France, and so they're taking advantage of that. So that's really good news.
There are more opportunities, but it's still difficult to find a job.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you had one or more families staying with you at some time, didn't you?
We did, and we hosted several people throughout, I would say, no more than a year, because in Saint-Omer, they were really efficient at finding social housing for Ukrainian refugees. So I haven't hosted anybody for at least, I would say, a year and a half.
Okay.
But Paul, who works in Switzerland, has been hosting Ukrainian family since the beginning of the war, because the Swiss are not as efficient as Mary Minnie here.
Yeah. Well, she did write the book on this, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Let me ask a question to Yulia. First of all, how are you and your daughters adjusting to life in France?
I think man is a creature what can adapt to any condition, and we are doing our best to adapt to life in France. We continue to learn French. I'm taking a course in payroll accounting. My eldest daughter wanted to take a course at the university, but we able to enter and get an education, but she was refused and offered to find a course closer to our place of
Mhm.
residence.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be looking something else.
Mm-hmm.
And my younger daughter goes to school, and her progress in language learning is the most impressive. I
Ah,
think,
okay.
yes, I think my pronunciation will never be the same as her.
Well, I was saying that Veronica, Yulia's youngest daughter, has really improved, and her pronunciation is great. She sounds like a French person.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's funny because well, it's not funny. It's to be expected. The young people learn so much faster. Although I must say, Yulia, I recall in your interview with Paul a year ago, you said that your French had become better than your English. Your English is excellent, so your French must be really great. So congratulations to you.
I can vouch for that.
She had a good
Wow.
teacher. She had a good teacher. Yeah. So there's a Ukrainian family that came to the United States. They live near us, and we've provided some support to them. And the mother also had two daughters, and the daughters, the one I think she's like 15. I think they're like 15 and 13. But the older one in particular has learned English. She's speaking with American slang. It's incredible. I've done way better than mom at this point. So I guess that's just the way it goes. But
Veronica also knows quite a lot of slang.
uh-huh.
Yes.
So Yulia, tell us a little bit more about Annie's classes and what part they played in your adaptation to the French culture.
Annie, she's everything for us. We turn to her with different problems and questions, and she always helps us. Thanks to her, we learn standard French and
Uh-huh.
conversational French,
Mm-hmm.
which is very important in everyday life. We meet and talk about different topics: politics, geography, culture, literature, music, sport. Any often organize interesting excursion
Mm-hmm.
for us, for example, to a museum or a cathedral.
Mhm.
Her classes are always incredible, interesting.
Oh,
Thank
that-
you.
Thank you, Annie.
well, she is an award-winning educator, so I guess that's why she's an award winner, because she does it right. She knows how to do it. So, Ani, let me ask you a question. You had said you teach an intensive French language class to the women. So, how intensive is intensive? What does that mean?
Intensive means that I said that it depends on which structure you teach for. For instance, when Yulia was my student, I was teaching first 20 hours a week, and it became, I believe, 24 hours a week.
Wow.
And so it was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Very often in intensive classes, they will have Wednesday off, because in France, on Wednesday, kids who go to primary schools don't go to school on that day. So
Ah.
that's why they don't want to give classes to mothers. Otherwise, they wouldn't know what to do with their children.
Right.
But
So,
still, it's
yeah.
pretty intensive. And currently, I'm teaching another group of mostly Ukrainians.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even more intensive because it's 28 hours a week.
Wow.
7 hours on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday again.
Wow, that's like a full-time job.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
Wow, that's
Same job currently.
That's great. Now, and Yulia talked, she mentioned that it's really learning more than the language. You're kind of learning more about the culture. So tell us a little more about the kind of things that you teach them to help them understand what France is all about.
Many of them arrived and they were complete beginners. They didn't know, not much French at all, except for merci, bonjour, and so on. But
Mhm.
then, so once I have gone through the basic vocabulary, then I always include what I want to teach in a cultural context. So, for instance, if I want to teach about, I don't know, let's say the vocabulary of things that you can find in a house,
Uh-huh.
like the rooms and the pieces of furniture and so on, then I will, for instance, use like ads that you can find on the internet about people looking for a place or people renting a place.
Mhm.
So the vocabulary will be there, but it will be in the context of, looking for an apartment, for instance.
Useful things, and
Yes,
not just
things that
saying
they
the sky is blue. Yeah.
Yes, things that, or, my brother is in the kitchen.
Mhm.
But yeah, things that they will eventually will be faced to using.
Mhm.
And another thing also is I'm quite interested in history and geography myself. So I also teach them about the area where they live,
Mhm.
the history of Saint-Omer,
Mhm.
the customs and local culture, and also history of France, so that they have a better understanding of, like for instance, when they send their children to school, if they go to a public school, then our public schools, there's the separation of church and state in France, like in the US,
Mhm.
but it goes beyond that in France. It's really laïcité, which means that religion has no place at all. So I will teach them things like that. I will teach
Mhm.
them the history, how it came to be,
Mhm.
and so on, so that they have a better grasp of, why public schools have no religion,
Mhm.
or like for instance, why you can visit a cathedral, except during offices, because the rule separation of church and state has made it so that anything built before 1905 belongs to the town. So that's why the cathedral, the owner,
Oh, I see.
it's not the Catholic Church, that owns the cathedral. It's the town of Saint-Omer.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
So
Okay.
things like that, that's quite important, I think.
So you taught me something today.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Let's get back to Yulia. What is your employment situation in France now versus a year ago? Have you managed to get some employment yet?
The employment situation is also still difficult, and I can't find work in cleaning and gardening like a babysitter, but it's almost impossible to find a job in an office similar to that I had in Ukraine. As
Yeah,
a
because
lawyer,
you had a pretty high-powered job in Ukraine.
yes,
Yes,
here is difficult. But
difficult.
now I'm interning as a payroll accountant at a great company, and we will see what happens next.
Okay, okay. Well, congratulations. That's a step.
I try never give up.
That's a step. Never give up. That's a good attitude. That's a good attitude. Now, a year ago, you mentioned that your older daughter, who was 18, had a boyfriend and was doing well. And you said that your 8-year-old was making friends, was learning French pretty well. Can you comment on where they are today compared to a year ago? What's the same? What's different?
Still okay, but my elder daughter, she wants to move to a bigger city. And there
Oh,
are more opportunities for self-realization.
okay.
Yes.
So that's maybe a little stressful point there. And
And
what about your younger daughter? So your daughters would be like 9 and 19 today, or 8 and 18.
she's 9.
She-
I'm very happy she got good grades and
Mhm.
now she is enjoying her vacation.
Oh, good. That's good. That's great.
And the most important thing for me is that my kids are safe.
Yes, yes. Number one for sure. Yeah. So, do they still have friends back in Ukraine that they are able to connect with via social media or telephone or?
We all keep in touch with friends in Ukraine and friends who live in different European countries and in the United States. Life abroad, it's not easy, but also in my hometown, Kharkiv, it's almost impossible to live. Bombardment every day, heat, no light, no water. It's not living, it's surviving.
Oh yeah, boy, that's
Uh,
terrible. That's right. That's right in the middle of everything, isn't it? It's been really pummeled so much.
I really want to go back home, but to Ukraine as it was before the war started.
Mm-hmm. Ani, let me ask you another question. So, what's the future look like for you down the road here? You'd mentioned that you have some new students and you've got a very intensive class now.
Yeah.
Uh,
With this new group, we started 2 weeks ago, and I will teach them until the end of January. So
mhm.
it's a 6 month thing. And then after that, will we have more Ukrainian students? I'm not sure because many of them have now taken French.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that what we give them is, 6 months intensive French. And for some people, it's enough, but for many, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because, French is not the easiest language. And then there's also, it's not like they can concentrate 100% on learning French. Half of their mind is still in Ukraine.
Oh
They
yeah.
think of their family, their children, and so they are only 50% concentrated in French. So that's why 6 months, I mean, we would need more time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only thing the government is paying for. And so for many, it would be enough to find a job as a cleaning lady, as jobs where you don't have to speak so much. But for people, like for instance, in my previous class, I had a pharmacist, and her French has improved, but not enough to be a pharmacist
Not
in
enough to
France.
be a
So,
technical job like that. Yeah.
that's the problem.
Uh-huh.
But the government is already pretty generous, I think, in because not only the government is paying for those intensive classes, but people who are taking those classes are also getting a stipend every month.
Okay. So
And the stipend is about 700 euros.
mm-hmm. Okay.
But then they don't get anything else. So they have to live on that.
They have to live on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, one of the other episodes that we did was we talked to your husband, Paul, after he had come back from a supply mission to Ukraine. And he had said that he was planning another supply mission and sometime in the summer, I guess. What about
Yes.
you? What are your plans?
Actually, this time I will be going with him.
Ah, okay. You'll be going with him.
Yes, I
Wonderful.
will be going with him. So we'll be going there we'll be living for a week altogether.
Mm-hmm.
We will drive. Our plan is to go to Lviv and Kyiv and then come back. And in those two towns, meet with our contacts and give them the medical supplies that we will have purchased or gotten.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Well, listen, I'm going to put in the show notes at the bottom of the podcast, I'm going to put a link to the episodes that where we interviewed you and Mary, and also the one where Paul interviewed the Ukrainian women, and we'll put a link to the one where Paul described his supply mission to Ukraine, and we'll also put a link to the other Ukrainian episode that we did, and that was with the wounded doctor in Ukraine who was a frontline doctor. He was recovering from his wounds. Now that has gone on to be one of our highest downloaded podcasts. So that was a very touching story that he gave us. So we'll put links to all of those at the end of this. So let me get over to Yulia again. Now, when Paul interviewed you, he also interviewed a woman named Olga, who lived in Zhytomyr. I apologize if I
Yes,
didn't.
yes, Zhytomyr.
Okay, that's a town 130 miles, 130 kilometers west of Kyiv. And the other woman was Dasha, a journalist from Kharkiv, and she had two daughters also. Could you shed any light on how they are doing today?
Yeah, okay. We are all members of organization Solidarity Ukraine. It's a charitable organization that help Ukrainians here in Saint Omer and Ukraine with Ani and Mary Mini.
Uh-huh.
I think it's very important to help and support those who are in a much worse situation than we. About Olga, in May, Olga has successfully finished the professional course on payroll accounting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very proud of her because even for French people, it's a difficult profession and not everyone could pass the exam. Now it's necessary to find a job, and that is in our challenge.
Yeah, always the challenge. Yeah. But so that's another big milestone for her, though, is that's a big accomplishment, passing that exam.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about Dasha?
Dasha graduated from any schools. My eldest daughter and her eldest daughter also took this course. So Annie knows better.
Okay. When Paul asked you a year ago, last July, about future plans, you said it was difficult or even impossible to see a future. And Dasha even said, no plans, only hope. Is that the same situation today? Is it any different today?
Plans for the future are still the same, to believe in the victory of Ukraine
There you
and
go. Yeah.
and the end of the war.
Yeah.
I would like to prevent all death of people and children, but unfortunately, it's impossible. And the longer the war lasts, the more victims there will be. So I would like wars to end as soon as possible.
Yeah, yeah. Our hearts certainly go out to the people of Ukraine. This has just been a tragedy. We've kept you on here for a long time now. Any last words that either of you would like to pass along to our listeners?
Well, I would like to tell your listeners that they should keep Ukraine in their thoughts, in their prayers, and if they can help by helping Ukrainians where they are, or sending money to, good associations, then if they can afford to do that, then that would be great.
You know what? I can also put a link to the U.S. Branch of a charity that supports Ukraine. That's rememberus.org. I'll put that in the show notes also. We've had several listeners who have contributed to them. And of course, remember Paul, your husband Paul, he's still doing his periodic medical supply shipments, correct?
Yes, he is.
So you can also help Ukraine that way. I'll put a link to what Paul was doing, assuming that all works right. For that would be for Amazon.fr, and you go to the site, and it's a very straightforward and simple. It's in French, but you can order the supplies that Paul has prioritized, and they get shipped directly to a location in Poland, and then those supplies then get taken to Ukraine and distributed at the front lines as appropriate.
So yes, he's in touch with medics over there. So that's how he gets the list of what is needed. And today he sent me a text saying that he has just bought 20 intraosseous injectors, whatever that is. But looking at the word, it has to do. But yes, he's still doing that.
But they'll go on the website if they want to go on the website that I'm going to put. They'll see it there.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And Yulia, any last words for us?
Thank you for listening to us, for speaking and remembering Ukraine, and it's very important for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, and again, thank you both. I really appreciate the time that you've spent. I hope our listeners get a better understanding for the situation here and what's happened and what hasn't happened. And Dale, do you have any words for us here?
Well, I was listening just like our listeners will be listening when we broadcast this. And the two old bucks, we do have Ukraine on our mind, and we don't want the world to forget about them. So we will do what we can. Anyhow, this is Old Buck Dill saying thank you, ladies, for joining us today. And Dave, I want you to stay safe and carry on out there. And I'll hold down the fort here in the USA. And Old Buck Dill saying, talk to you next time.
Okay, and this is Old Buck Dave from Germany at the moment, wishing everyone the best, and certainly all the best to our friends in France and Ukraine. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.